The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the famous Tom Fennell in the flesh.
In the flesh?
I apologize for the fact that our studio is a little bit odd today. That we got kicked out. BCTV has said, "You're out of here." And
it's very confusing.
It's a little confusing.
We haven't been bad or anything like that.
Not
They're
yet.
having a video camp for the kids,
Which is
and they need the studio.
Yeah, they need the studio, and they're having a lot of fun, and it's very worthwhile, and it's something that I would recommend to anybody who is a child, including even myself. I should probably try it.
It'd be fun. I'm sure it would.
I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't let me do it. But anyway, every day I go to the internet and find news items, package, do a 50-word synopsis and a link to the original for each one that I find that I like, and I put these together and put them up at my blog, geoharvey.com, GeoHarvey. And then 10 to 15 of those go up every day. I've put up over 28,000 links already to news articles, and some of them actually work.
We're going to have a party when we hit 30,000?
Maybe. And today is our 273rd Energy Week show. 273 hours of this show we will have done. That's kind of amazing. But we're starting on a week ago from the time that we're recording this, which is July 26th. And we're starting on July 19th. If you want to look at one of these articles, you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, GeoHarvey. Click on the date on the calendar, and you'll have at most 15 articles to look through to find the one that you're interested in. So
There's a couple this week that are very, very interesting and worthwhile looking up.
yeah,
They'll be coming toward the end of this show, and I will mention them.
actually, a couple of them at the start of the show. I mean,
Well, this is a very good show.
This is gonna be
We got
fun.
a lot of good stuff this
yeah.
week.
Okay, so we should start off July 19th, and I should put up there we go.
Aha, there's a picture.
Brian, who is our I don't know what his title is. He said that he thought he could edit these in possibly, but he's under the gun because of all the kids being in. So if we have to have just this image behind us, I apologize for that too. But
Well, if you're wondering what you're looking at, it's uranium ore.
it's uranium ore. It looks
Oh,
like
it says so on the
it says so right on there.
How about that?
How about that?
Learn something new every day.
And you don't have to look around, Tom. It's right here.
Yeah, there it is.
Anyway, here is an article from Yahoo Finance.
Trade war spills into uranium as the U.S. weighs import tariffs. Now, this is an important thing because these import tariffs, let's say they're mischievous.
Mischievous. I don't think Donald Trump really understood what he was doing when he decided to have a trade war. The Trump administration began an investigation into whether uranium imports threaten national security, a move that may lead to tariffs on nuclear power plant fuel. U.S. uranium miners supply less than 5% of domestic consumption for the metal, and say it's increasingly difficult to compete with state-subsidized companies abroad. Well,
to put this in perspective, we used to use source 49%, almost half of our uranium from ourselves, and now we're only buying 5%.
yeah.
So they have us in a kind of a stranglehold.
Well, this is a large number of countries, including Russia, are supplying this uranium. But the thing that's
the two main sources. The first one's Canada. Well, that's obvious.
Obvious.
Bet you can't guess the second one. Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Oh, sure.
I wouldn't
of course.
even know that.
I should have realized.
That wasn't even a country a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Prices have slumped since Fukushima led Japan and Germany to shut down or decommission their reactors.
Yes.
So the world demand is way down.
World demand is down. In the United States, we're gradually closing reactors. We might close as many as half of them in the next 15 years or so.
Well, it's because they're no longer competitive.
Yeah, and
They cost too much.
yeah, but the interesting thing about this is, if Donald Trump puts tariffs on the uranium supply, that doesn't mean that magically overnight we're going to be providing 50% or 100% of our own uranium.
We couldn't if we wanted to.
We couldn't if we'd have to ramp that business back up again. And what it does mean is that the nuclear power plants that are in existence are going to have to pay those tariffs, which means he's got a tax on nuclear power, which he's trying to save.
Yeah.
This is a more this is a man who said nobody knew medical insurance was so complicated. Okay, should we move on, Tom?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Our next one is fun.
100% renewable energy, colon. UK carbon emissions have fallen below 1890 levels, the Victorian era.
Carbon Brief reports that UK greenhouse gas emissions are already 38% below the 1990 levels and are now equal to emissions that have not been seen since Queen Victoria sat on the throne. It says that the decrease is attributed to a sharp drop in the amount of coal used in the UK to generate electricity, along with an increase in renewables. Renewable energy in the UK has been burgeoning, and primarily in the form of offshore wind.
Offshore wind, really big time. Yep.
But there's one little cautionary note I want to throw into this, and that is one of the things that the UK has been doing, and personally it annoys me like mad. They have been saying, okay, we're going to take this coal plant, Drax being a prime example, we're going to take this coal plant and we're going to convert it to burning wood pellets. And when they did that, they promised the state of Georgia, among other things, that they would just use
fallen
timbers and would that couldn't be used for any other purpose.
Doesn't work that way, does it?
No, they're clear-cutting forests in Georgia. So I don't think those things really should count. They're not a huge amount of the UK energy, but they are an appreciable amount.
Well, the UK government plans to close all the coal plants by 2025.
Right.
And coal made, this is from the article, coal made the Industrial Revolution possible.
Yes.
Okay, but the curtain falls and time passes on all things.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah, so that's what's happening there, guys.
Okay, we are up to an article in Clean Technica, still July 19th.
Denver pledges 100% renewable electricity by 2030. Gee, they're going to have a hard time meeting that.
I don't know about that. Denver's mayor, now seeking a third term, pledged that the city will source 100% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2030. In doing so, Denver became the 73rd city in the U.S. to commit to a 100% renewable energy target. 9 other Colorado cities have made a 100% renewable energy commitment, but Denver is the largest.
Well, this is interesting because it's based upon the economics alone. Colorado has an incredible combination of wind and solar resources.
Yeah.
This article has a lot of pictures about it.
Yes, it does. It's one of those things that's...
Now, near Denver, this is an example of what's going on. Wind's above 100 feet near Denver. This is the city.
Yes.
Average over 20 miles an hour. Okay, so they're putting up windmills. And eastern Colorado is a desert with significant solar resources.
Yes. Okay, we are up to Friday, July 20th, and we have an article from International Policy Digest. There it is.
Okay, now that's a nuclear-powered icebreaker. Okay.
The Soviet Union's first nuclear-powered ship was an icebreaker.
Well, they need icebreakers.
Yeah, I think they do. Well, if they can mess up the climate enough, they won't need icebreakers anymore.
That seems to be happening, doesn't it?
Yes, doesn't it?
Well, the article here says that Rosatom, as a tactic in Russia's foreign policy. Now, you'll have to tell us what Rosatom is. If you can't, I will.
I think it's Rosatom.
Rosatom,
R-O-S-A-T-O-M.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's an acronym of some sort.
I don't think it's even an acronym. I think it's just a couple of pieces of words that are stuck together, and it means
Yeah.
Russian atomic power.
Well,
Russia.
I'll explain what that is because it's an important company, but you can
Yeah,
tell
it
me
is an
now.
important company. Russia has continued to supply record amounts of coal, oil, and gas to global markets, but it has also identified nuclear power generation as a new energy export option. Russian leadership has embarked on active nuclear power diplomacy globally, with Rosatom at its centerpiece.
Well, this is interesting. It's a state-owned company.
Yeah.
It's got 360 subsidiaries engaged in activities that cover nuclear electricity generation, nuclear weapons, and nuclear icebreakers. It's all about nuclear.
It's all about nuclear.
In order
That's
to
what it
reap the
is.
maximum profit from energy exports and to deploy nuclear power as a means to achieve political ends.
Yep.
So that's what they're doing with Rosatom.
Well, Donald Trump's very good buddy, Vladimir Putin, took all of, or almost all of the various nuclear things that were going on in Russia and consolidated them
That's
into that
what
one,
this is, yeah.
one
It's
company.
the second largest nuclear power company in the world now.
After-
Operates in 40 countries.
After what?
Huh?
After what? What's largest?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know.
Okay.
And every sixth reactor in the world operates with Russian fuel.
Wow. Our next item is important. It comes from Eureka Alert.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
A fingerprint, in quotes, for anthropogenic climate change in a new place.
Adding to evidence attributing observed atmospheric changes to man-made influences, climate scientists used decades of satellite data to identify a human fingerprint in quotes, on the troposphere, the lowest region of the atmosphere. In this space, say the authors, human-caused warming has significantly affected the seasonal cycle of the temperature. And what they're saying here, in effect, is, okay, it's not just that climate change is happening. Now, with this data, this is additional data that proves
We got evidence.
we've got evidence. It shows clearly that this is coming from human activity, not because, like, who was it? The governor, man running for governor of Pennsylvania, who said that climate change was happening because the Earth is getting closer to the sun every year,
We're gonna talk
and because
about that
all
later.
of those people,
We could have a little bit of a laugh there.
yeah. Okay,
We got another picture coming up
We
here,
do,
too. This
yeah.
is New York City.
this is New York City.
Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
Oil majors win dismissal of New York City climate lawsuit.
A
That
US
explains why we're looking at New York City.
Yeah, it does. A U.S. judge dismissed a lawsuit by New York City seeking to hold major oil companies liable for climate change caused by carbon emissions from burning fossil fuels. In dismissing the city's claims, a U.S. judge, John Keenan in Manhattan, said climate change must be addressed, but it must be addressed through federal regulation and foreign policy. Now,
So he bailed out of this one. But, it's not over. And he did say something important because this is now part of the court record. Climate change is a fact of life,
yes, well,
Okay.
he's not the first judge to say that.
as is not contested by the defendants.
Yes, but,
So this is a precedent.
we're in a series of lawsuits here that are very similar to the lawsuits that happened over tobacco. The tobacco industry lost. The tobacco industry lost. The tobacco industry lost. It went on and on and on, year after year. It looked like there would be no change. And then all of a sudden, the tobacco industry won. I'm sorry. They won, and then
All of a sudden they lost.
all of a sudden they lost. And when they lost big
They
time.
lost everything. Not everything, but a lot.
Not everything, but a lot, yeah. And
Well, there is a takeaway from here. The city has already announced it intended to divest fossil fuel investments from its $189 billion public pension funds. That's a big one.
Yeah.
They're taking that money out.
yeah. And basically, there's anybody who's interested in this story should remember, every time a city, and we just talked about Denver, pulls out of buying fossil fuels, it means that fossil fuels are up against more competition from renewable energy. And ultimately, they are in a losing game here, and they know it. If they don't know it, then they're crazy.
Well, in the long run, if you don't have to pay for fuel, it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
Duh.
And it's cheaper. Should we move on?
Yeah, let's
We're
move
up
on.
to
Saturday,
yeah, go ahead.
July 21st.
Yes, and we have an item from the Daily Courier.
Pinnacle West files suit to block renewable energy vote.
This is, it's depressing.
A little bit of politics
We're
here.
supposed to be in a democracy here. The parent company of Arizona's largest electric utility filed a suit in a bid to block voters from deciding if they want to impose new renewable energy mandates on power companies. Attorneys hired by Arizonans for affordable electricity. It sounds good, but anybody can. I can name myself Santa Claus. That doesn't mean that that's who I am.
Well, you look more like him than I do.
Yeah, well, that may be true, but it doesn't make me more like him than you are. Funded by Pinnacle West Capital Corp., claim a series of legal flaws in the petitions that were put on the ballot. Now, I want to point.
Playing games here.
Yeah, I want to point out here. This is an organization that was put together with a business plan that says we're here to make money for our stockholders, and they're saying we're going to do this thing because it is Arizonans. We are Arizonans, not we are a company. We are Arizonans who are for affordable electricity, not for making money for our stockholders. Is what they should have said. We are a private organization that wants to make money by billing people. And they say we are Arizonans for affordable energy, and I'm babbling.
They're playing games.
They are playing games.
Well, let's see how it all shakes out. I mean, in the long run, they're doing something into the wind.
Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got a good one here. We got a nice picture here.
We do, and this is from Interesting Engineering.
This is a plasma fusion reactor, as it says.
Yeah, I'm going to spout about this one, too.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
Science discover how to keep plasma in fusion reactors stable. Now, they've been working on that for 50 years.
This is a breakthrough. Researchers made an enormous leap recently by moving one step closer to stable fusion nuclear energy. They discovered a way to stabilize plasma in fusion reactors to prevent temperatures and densities from oscillating. The process they discovered runs in simulations. Now, obviously, it runs in simulations, but they haven't yet really...
So it's been done on a computer.
It's been done on a computer. If it runs in fusion reactors as expected, which it might not, it may help bring them to reality. And I have a little issue with that last sentence.
Well, the problem is that plasma is an extremely hot state of matter.
Yeah, it
and
is.
it's formed in fusion reactors.
You don't want it in your kitchen.
It's very difficult to stabilize this plasma, and that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, this is a
And now they've done it on a computer, but they haven't done it in real life.
I do want to mention one thing here. A lot of people say if we have working fusion reactors, we have an infinite source of fuel because they run on water.
Inexhaustible.
Yeah. The problem with that is it isn't water. It's a special kind of water.
Which is very expensive.
Very expensive. You remember the heavy water things in Germany? The Germans during the Second World War had a heavy water plant in Norway, and the British went in.
I don't remember.
Well, you remember that it happened. The heavy water is what's used in hydrogen bombs, and you can get heavy water by a painstaking process where you start with regular water. But it's hard to do because the stuff costs thousands of dollars a quart.
It's still H2O, but it's a different kind of H.
It's a different kind of H. They call it deuterium.
Yeah.
So sometimes you see it represented as D2O.
Yep.
But the problem is that's only half of the water that's involved. The other half is tritium oxide.
Which is another crazy form of hydrogen.
Tritium exists in nature, but only barely. You couldn't extract it from nature. You can barely find it in nature. You have to make it.
Is that where it comes from? You make it?
Millions of dollars a quart. And, you know, these reactors, by the time they're done with them, they're going to cost huge amounts of money, I think, probably.
Well, I got a little backstory here about
Yeah.
this.
Go ahead.
This study, the group that's doing this is the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory in
Yes.
Princeton, New Jersey.
Yes.
And I lived down that way, and one of my friends worked there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking to him one day, you know, and he was working on fusion. You know, I says, what they really need is a massive effort like the Manhattan Project.
Yes.
And he said to me, it won't work. He says, these things have to go in steps.
Yeah.
And you could throw all the money in the world in it, and you couldn't speed these steps up because they got their own timeline.
Yeah.
So that was a long time ago. They still haven't done it.
They still
They
haven't
still
done it.
haven't done it.
They've been trying to do this almost as long as I've been alive.
That's probably true. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're up to an item from Science Alert, still Saturday, July 21st.
A Republican candidate calls a 18-year-old climate activist naive.
Oh my gosh.
Her response is perfect.
Well, the response wasn't what I would call quite perfect. Nevertheless, the story is great. A Pennsylvania gubernatorial candidate called an 18-year-old naive when she questioned him on climate science. He believes that the Earth is warming because it moves closer to the sun every year and because a larger population gives off more body heat.
This is her response. He's calling her naive, so she answers, to say I'm naive? I've been studying environmental science since I was 12 years old. The governor doesn't have to be a scientist, but he needs to understand science.
Yes. And, you know, this just speaks to what's going on in our political system. We have a system that has somehow undercut education.
Well, this is an interesting takeaway here from
Yeah,
the article.
yeah.
There are 180 climate deniers in 115th Congress. The present Congress. They're all Republicans, by the way.
Yeah.
And these politicians have received more than $80 million in donations from the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah. Do you suppose there's a connection?
No.
One would hope not. You know, the thing that's interesting about this is they haven't quite figured out a couple of very basic things.
Yeah.
One of which is climate change is real
Yeah.
and it's going to catch up with them. And denying it isn't going to make it go away. It just means that when people find out what is happening, they're just going to be that much madder.
I think so. Yeah.
The second thing is they're trying to block renewable energy from being introduced. And renewable energy is so cheap compared to fossil fuels. It's getting cheaper and
No,
cheaper
like I said
every year.
before, you don't have to pay for fuel.
Wind power, solar power, batteries, you can put them together and they're competing head on with natural gas. And 5 years from now, they will be out competing natural gas. So should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Here we got a nice picture of a
We
oil well burning.
We are up to Sunday, July 22nd, with an item from Nation of Change.
The oil industry plans to keep workers safe by firing them and having robots do their jobs.
Yeah, this is a.
They'll keep them pretty safe.
Let's make sure everybody has a job.
This is a good, very long article.
I
but
wonder
it's good.
how Donald Trump can reconcile the various parts of the puzzle that are emerging here. The oil and gas industry is finally acknowledging how dangerous conditions can be for its workers after years of touting their safety record. This sudden honesty comes with a new safety solution. Fire the workers and replace them with robots.
Well, that'll save their safety.
Yeah.
Preserve their safety.
And, you know, this picture that we've got, that is Deepwater Horizon. It was a
Offshore drilling rig.
offshore
Caught
drilling
on fire.
rig. How in the world are you going to put that fire out by throwing water at
You
it?
can't.
I mean, I don't even know why they're doing that. I don't
For show.
understand. No, I don't think so. I don't think they'd waste the money doing that for show. I think that there's some other reason. And it may be that they...
I think they were trying to cool the oil down so that it extinguished itself.
that may be.
Because the oil and water don't mix, so
Yeah.
that's about the only thing I can think of they could do.
Okay. We have an item from Reuters. You want to look for it and I'll read the thing?
I've got the next one coming up, I think.
Okay.
A tenth of U.S. veteran coal miners have black lung disease. Is that the one we're going to talk about?
That's the one we're going to talk about. More than 10% of Americans coal miners with 25 years or more of experience, which is what they mean by veteran coal miners, have black lung disease, the highest rate recorded in roughly 2 decades, according to a government study that showed cases concentrated heavily in Central Appalachia. The study was by researchers from the government's National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, which is also called
Well, this
OSHA.
black lung disease is a very debilitating disease, respiratory illness that's caused by coal dust.
Yeah,
It's sort of like asbestosis, but it's done by coal instead of asbestos.
yeah,
And in the final ages, I mean, these guys are bedridden. They can't even walk.
yeah.
It's just
And they every once in a while you see some kind of hearing on this that comes up before the Congress or whatever, and some veteran coal miner who has retired walks in and says, nobody should ever be made to suffer the way I am suffering.
yeah.
And, you know, the young coal miners go down in the mines because they've got great jobs that pay well.
They pay very well.
Yeah.
I mean,
and, you know, they want to raise their kids, and who can blame them? But they're exposing themselves to hazards that are going to catch up with them sooner or later if they stay down in those mines.
and basically this is happening anywhere there's underground coal mines, but they're particularly in Kentucky and West Virginia.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got an interesting picture coming up here.
We
too.
do indeed, and this is from Arizona Daily Sun.
Navajo Utility proposes a solar project near Flagstaff, Arizona.
In May of last year, the 120,000 PV solar panels at the Kayenta Solar Plant, the first utility-scale solar plant on the Navajo Nation, went operational. Now, the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority that owns the Kayenta plant is pushing ahead with 2 more solar projects on the reservation with a combined capacity of 100,000 to 150,000 megawatts.
There's a takeaway from the article. As the tribe faces the closure of the Navajo generating station due to coal's increasingly uneconomic prospects, solar is a more sustainable path moving forward. Coal is dying, and we need to look into more clean energy, and we have the weather for it. We meaning the Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm looking at the thing that I just read, it couldn't be 100,000 to 150,000 megawatts. That'd be a bit more. I think they mean
That's the number of solar panels.
That's the number of solar panels, perhaps. And that might be
a
my mistake.
combined capacity.
Yeah,
That's probably supposed to be kilowatts.
It might be
100,000
it would be
kilowatts.
which would mean 100 to 150 megawatts,
Yeah.
and that might be my error in transcribing the thing that came because
Still a lot of power.
Yeah, we're up to Monday, July 23rd, and we have a picture
Got
here.
another picture
This is an interesting article.
Absolutely. This is very well worth taking into consideration.
Right, WFMZ Allentown.
That's the radio station
Yes,
or TV station.
yes.
Northampton County, Pennsylvania agrees to go green with Renewable Energy project. I got news for you. There's going to be more.
Yeah.
But that's an existing canal.
Yes. The Northampton County, the New England Hydropower Company says it wants to place a small-scale hydropower plant in Hugh Moore Park along the Delaware and Lehigh Historic Canal Corridor in Pennsylvania. It recently presented its plans to Northampton County Council, which voted to match a state grant for the project in any amount up to $1.5 million. Now, this is a point where I really want to pay attention to this picture. They're talking about putting any amount of money up to $1.5 million to grant to a grant that would match a grant from the state government, so that this thing would be subsidized to up to $3 million, And they're developing what we're seeing in that picture for $3 million. Now, they're not going to do that if it isn't worthwhile doing from a financial point of view.
Absolutely.
So I want, the point that I'm making is that's not a lot, that's not a big canal. That's not a huge amount of water. And
no, it's not.
It's not. And these things are all over the place.
You took the words right out of my mouth. They are.
Did
They're
I?
all over New England.
Yeah.
They're abandoned. They're not being used for anything. They were providing water power for mills and stuff like
Absolutely.
that a century ago.
Yep. Lori Barg, who is a local Vermont, New Hampshire expert.
I know of Lori.
Yeah. She told me that she had done an inventory of sites in Vermont that could be not built. This is not new dams.
No, the dams are there already.
The dams are already there. It's just a matter of putting hydropower into them. And she said if they were...
Isn't she developing Townsend?
I think she did develop Townsend, and she's got one going in New Hampshire. But she said her inventory showed that if they were all developed, which of course they never would be, but if they were all developed, it would be 250 megawatts. And that's a lot of power from hydro.
Sure is.
I mean, that's
more than we use in the state.
No, it's about a third of what we use.
Third of what we use.
Yeah, that's how much. It is about what we used to buy from Vermont Yankee. And so this is a lot of power, and the dams are there, and the dams are not going to be taken down for environmental reasons because they are there in order to prevent floods.
Downriver.
Downriver, yeah.
Like the dams in Jamaica are intended to prevent floods in Hartford, Connecticut.
That's right. Yeah.
Which used to be pretty nifty.
Yeah.
You go downtown Hartford where all the insurance companies are, and you see the high water mark on the wall. It's 12 feet off the ground.
Yeah. And this is the insurance companies, and they're sitting here saying, insurance, anybody? Well, the old story was flood insurance was cheap if you lived in places where there was never any flooding. Otherwise, it was going to be expensive. And then, in the I forget what year, I think it was 1970s, the National Flood Insurance Act came along, which provided U.S. government guarantees for flood insurance. Now, if you want to try something interesting, see if Donald Trump would like to have those guarantees taken away.
Ooh.
Because he would be unable to insure his properties.
Absolutely, and therefore couldn't sell them.
That's right. Okay, we should go on.
What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Finish saying what you were going to say. I was just taking a breath.
Oh, okay. I don't have more to say there.
Reverse power flow.
Yeah.
How solar plus batteries shift power. Now, this is the political power, not the electrical power.
Not the electric power.
From utilities to customers. It's a long article. It's worth reading.
It's in red, green, and blue. For 100 years, the U.S. electric grid has been controlled by electric utilities, public regulators, and grid operators. But the economics of coal and nuclear power plants relying on operating at high capacities around the clock are being undermined by PVs and batteries. It's like the battle between the elephants and the ants.
Well, one of the subheadings in this article is that the utilities are clueless.
Some of them are.
Some of them are.
Some of them are not.
Green Mountain Power is an exception.
Yes.
They know what's going on.
Yes, and there are other utilities. I mean, Mid-American is going to be 100% renewable, and that's one that is controlled somewhat indirectly by Warren Buffett. This is a guy who knows what he's doing, and he's an investor, not a kook. Not the people who...
Well, it says from the article here, cutting the cord to the grid could be at price parity within 10 years.
I got news for you. It depends where you are.
Where you are.
Already at price parity in
some places. Yeah,
and in fact, it has been for years. Nancy Ray Mallory, who's the editor of Green Energy Times, which I write for, built her house several years ago. I don't know how many. It might be 10. It might be 12. But at that time, it was cheaper to do solar and batteries at her house than it was to get grid power. And the reason was because telephone poles would have had, or utility poles would have had
Yeah,
to be put in.
getting power if you're in a remote location
Yeah.
in Vermont is very expensive.
Very expensive, and it is really all over the place. But now what's happening is more and more places, it's cheaper to get electricity. We've seen this happening in these stories from Australia.
Yeah.
There are whole towns that are saying, we don't want to connect. And as a matter of fact, there are utilities that are saying to towns, put together a microgrid. We will help.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper to put together a microgrid and let those people go on their own way than it is to maintain the utility lines going out. You know, you've got
You got a town and then 100 miles, then another town.
yeah, and they've got 200 people each, and you say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We have to maintain 100 miles of utility lines to sell electricity to 100 people? That doesn't make sense.
Well, according to this article, there's a graph doing this. In Vermont, 73% of residential customers have the ability to pay less for their own solar plus storage than buying utility power.
Yeah.
It's not that they're all doing it yet.
Yeah.
But they could.
They could.
That's
Okay.
73%. That's
That's a
interesting.
significant number, yes. Okay, we are up to an article in Clean Technica, and we have a kind of a disturbing picture here.
This article has a video of that,
Yes.
and what you saw there, I think it's the same one. It's a truck loaded with gas cans, domestic gas,
Yeah.
propane.
Yeah.
The propane gas cans fall off the truck
Oh,
and start to burn, and one by one they explode.
Oh,
So
my
you got
gosh.
about 10 minutes of explosions.
Oh.
It calms down a little bit, then whoosh,
there's another
then
one.
another one.
Yeah. Okay, what's the
10
title?
plus million fires, 19,000 deaths, and 70,000 injuries from internal combustion vehicles.
Yeah, this is kind of disturbing. Over 10 million highway vehicle fires caused about 19,000 deaths and over 70,000 injuries in the U.S. from 1980 to 2015, the National Fire Protection Association says. But some mainstream news outlets ignore those fires, all of them, and seem to report always any fire that happens involving a Tesla.
Well, it seems that it's more newsworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, vehicles burning up, ho-hum.
Ho-hum.
Oh, but it's a Tesla. Aha.
Aha.
I had a fire in my car once.
Did you?
Yeah.
I've seen fires in cars that were stunning. They were, you couldn't get within 100.
Well, mine wasn't bad. It was in a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
And the fuel pump was leaking.
Oh dear.
And a little bit of that gas
Got
got
on-
on the muffler
Yeah.
and
Ignited.
ignited.
Yeah.
And I was able to put it out with just sand. Picked it up off the ground and threw it on it. And,
Yeah.
I was able to drive it away. I tightened the connection, but it was scary. I mean, it could have been big time bad.
Well, I've never had a fire in a car, but a lot of people do. And as I said, I've seen them. I have seen fires where cars are just brightly burning. And this article does have a video in it that goes on and on and on. That you just see one fire after another, and they're different fires, but it's pretty scary. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, July 24th, and we have an article from Clean Technica.
Aha, this was Tuesday the 24th. There's 3 articles that day. Every one of them's a winner.
Yeah,
Every one of them's a good article for
Yeah.
that day.
yeah.
Trump to seek repeal of California's smog fighting power.
The Trump administration will seek to revoke California's authority to regulate automobile greenhouse gas emissions in a proposed revision of Obama-era standards, according to 3 people familiar with the plan. The proposal, expected to be released this week, sets up high-stakes battle over the state's ability to regulate air pollution.
Well, California and 16 other states have filed a lawsuit seeking to block the Trump administration's efforts.
Yes.
But, it's kind of, Obama did it, therefore I got to undo it.
I honestly think that you're right there. I think that, you know, there was a roast at which Obama roasted Trump. It was on television, and you could see it happen. And I think that we have a government now which is based to a very large degree on who flatters Donald Trump and who offends him.
I think you're right.
And, you know,
It certainly looks like it.
okay, our next item is from CNN. Pretty picture.
This is a nice picture. Yeah, this is a picture of the Arctic National Wildlife Reserve.
Yeah.
Which is a very important thing. I mean,
Yes.
You're going to read it. I'll give you the headline.
Yeah, do that.
Inside Alaska's battles over land, sea, and life.
There is a gold and oil rush underway in Alaska. It began when Donald Trump set out to deregulate the environment. It has brought dismay to fishermen and wildlife guides, conservationists, and Indian native tribes who believe that Alaska's true wealth lies in its wilderness and biodiversity. And you know, it makes me think, I grew up in a conservative household, and it makes me think about the kind of celebration that we had of what a beautiful country we had.
Yeah.
It was a very conservative thing. It was also a very liberal thing. It was all about the amber waves of grain.
Yeah.
And these people...
Purple Mountain Majesties.
Absolutely. There it is, right in front of you. And these people are just saying, no, that doesn't matter. You know, America, who worries about what America looks like? You know, all we're interested in is making sure that we've got money into the corporations because money means jobs. And by golly, money doesn't necessarily mean jobs.
Well, if you got some time, this is a great article.
Yeah.
There's a load of pictures. There's videos in them. And this ANWR, the wildlife refuge, is very important as a wildlife refuge.
Right.
But it's also great for the tourist trade.
Yes.
They're making money up there.
They're making money.
But they're the wrong guys making money.
Yeah.
There's oil under that.
Yeah.
And they're the right guys.
Yes. Well, we've seen this.
And they're doing it in the South. There's gold in Bristol Bay.
Yeah.
But there's more money in tourism. But it's going to the wrong people.
It's going to the wrong people. It's going. What we have is an administration that wants the money going to the people who support the administration, and that is what's called corruption. I'm sorry.
It is that.
It just is.
By the way, a little background on a wildlife refuge.
Yeah.
This isn't small.
No,
it's the size of South Carolina, which is, what, 5 times as big as Vermont or 4 times? Something like that.
Easily.
It's made of mountains and sweeping coastal plains that serve as calving grounds for one of the last great migrations left on Earth, the caribou.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of them come down from the mountains in the summer to give birth. So we get bears there, brown bears and polar bears, musk oxen, Arctic foxes, and birds from all 50 states. So they set this reserve aside, and now there's some people that want to dig for gold and dig for oil. And like I say, there's money in there in tourism, but it's going to the wrong hands.
Well, and there's people who have a way of life that they enjoy. They love it, and they want to be there and live the way they live. And this thing of drilling for oil is going to be threatening for some of them. Okay.
There was a lady from Homer, Alaska, that came down here to go to SIT.
Yeah.
And I got to know her for a little bit, you know. And she was a fisherwoman.
Yes.
She owned a fishing boat up there in Homer.
My brother worked in, he might actually have worked in Homer in a cannery, but it was, he said
canneries there.
The fishing boats, the way that they live on those, the people who do that, and it is astonishing. And he said one of the things that they'll do is they'll go out and they'll fish for 6 weeks, and then they'll come back, and the first thing they do is pay all their bills.
Okay.
And then the money they've got that remains is going to be their money for the next,
6 months. 6 weeks.
10 months, actually, until they go out to sea again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they only go out to sea once a year?
They go out to sea. This is an interesting job. It's like 6 weeks of extremely dangerous, very hard work, followed by 10 and a half months of doing whatever you feel like doing.
Early retirement.
Yeah, but I don't think things are that way anymore because the fishing seasons have changed. Okay, we're up to an article in Clean Technica.
Well, this is local,
Yeah,
and it's
sure
important if you're a Green Mountain Power customer.
It's also important.
Which is almost everybody watching this show.
Yeah, well, it's also important if you're interested in what B-corps are.
Well, we'll explain what that is, too.
Yeah.
Being a B Corp also benefits Green Mountain Power's bottom line.
Since Vermont's Green Mountain Power was certified as a benefit corporation, which is what a B Corp is, in 2014, and we talked about it, it has found financial success while maintaining social and environmental sustainability, a triple bottom line. Despite engaging in conventionally, quote, poor, end quote, business practices, its net income is still growing and even outpacing peers in the utility industry. And you know...
Well, they're marching to a different drummer. I think it's the right drummer.
Absolutely. You know, they've got Mary Powell, who is you know, has said her job was coming up with a new business plan, and you can bet your bottom dollar that these people up in Canada, that you know, that Green Mountain Power is owned by Canadian utility, kind of super utility. They're paying attention to this, and so there's some very interesting things going on there, and a lot of other utilities are paying attention. That's one side. Another side of this is a lot of utilities are not paying attention. But the one of the things that's important here is this business of the B Corp. And, you know...
I got a sentence about that.
Go ahead.
To become a B Corporation, the company must meet certain environmental and social standards of the nonprofit group B-Lab.
Yeah.
Okay? And these include upholding commitments to transparency,
yes,
community,
yes,
their employees,
yes,
their customers, and the environment.
Yes. And what it means is it's not just making money. It's more than that.
It's much more than that. It's benefits.
Yep.
It benefits a lot of people.
One of the things that Ceres did, this organization in Boston, is they've been going around pointing out to American companies that if they institute sustainability practices, which the B Corp would, it increases their bottom line.
So they're doing the right thing and they're making money while they're doing it.
Yeah, and this whole business of greed is good. Let's just be as greedy as we possibly can is very short-sighted from the point of view of making money. You know, it's kind of bizarre, but there it is. Got more?
Just the last sentence from the article.
Yep.
Despite Green Mountain Power's success, no other utilities have followed suit.
Not yet.
And the article, by the way, comes from the Edison Electric Institute.
Yes.
Which is the trade group of the large electrical utility.
Right.
I mean,
well, I'm surprised, honestly, that Vermont Electric Co-op hasn't done the same thing. But we'll see. I think we'll see if somebody else is going to do that. We are up to Wednesday, July 25th, with an article from Clean Technica.
China's LONGi Solar, or LONGi, LONGi, Solar signs a $600 million supply agreement in the U.S.
I think this is hysterically funny. I'm sorry. China's solar manufacturer LONGi Solar announced that it has signed in a $600 million supply agreement with an unnamed major U.S. power plant developer for its high-efficiency monocrystalline modules. Mark Osborne, senior news editor at PV Tech, believes that this is the largest supply module contract LONGi has signed with a U.S. developer. These are the modules Donald Trump targeted for tariffs.
Yeah. By the way, a module is what I normally call a panel.
Yeah, most
2
people
feet
do.
by 4 feet or something.
Whatever
like that.
it is, yeah. What this means is his tariffs are not keeping these things out. They're not, and basically what happened was the tariffs that he placed on the PV modules, the tariffs were not big enough to make up for the reduction in price in the tariffs in the previous year. So all of a sudden, the Chinese are selling these tariffs for a price that includes a big tax to the United States. But because of, what's China's first act after they get a tariff slapped on them? They tell their own people, oh, you can't install as much solar this year as you did last because we haven't got the facilities to be able to transmit the power back to the cities. So what are these people doing? They're reducing their prices further, 30%, and selling them all over Africa and South America, Central America, Southeast Asia, and they're setting up business ties with companies and countries where they are moving in and Americans are not able to compete with them because the Trump administration is not paying attention to business. They're paying attention to...
They're rather ironic.
They're paying attention to retaliation instead of business.
Yeah.
Okay. So should we go on, or do we want to look at this next picture?
Yeah, we got another nice picture coming up.
We do indeed. There it is.
It's called Landscape with Reflection.
Well, that was what I came up with. It didn't have anything. You know what I do is I tag these pictures because I have to insert them into the blog.
Well, this came from the article.
It came from the article, but it didn't have a caption.
Uh-huh.
So I just stuck that in so that I'd know what was supposed to go in that place. But it reminds me of Maxfield Parrish. I don't know.
I don't know anything about him.
Maxfield Parrish was an artist who did kind of hyper real looking paintings of fairy book people, and it's he did some really amazing stuff. And it was actually, Star Wars, occasionally you see stuff in Star Wars that looks like it's a takeoff on Maxfield Parrish. Anyway, nice picture. I liked it.
Well, this relates to one of the ones we talked about earlier with the Navajo.
Yes.
New Department of Energy loan guarantee program provides $2 billion for projects on tribal lands.
$2 billion.
That's more than a mouthful there.
Yeah, it is. We could have a big party on that.
I think so.
Yeah.
We can invite everybody in Brattleboro.
Yes, and throw $100 bills at them all day. About 6.5% of the total U.S. national renewable energy potential is on tribal land, 6.5%. A DOE source says, historically, this was not developed because of lack of access to capital. The Energy Policy Act of 2005 made loan guarantees available on tribal lands, but the program was not funded until the U.S. Congress passed the fiscal year 2017 omnibus spending bill.
That's 12 years.
Yeah, but it's a Republican-controlled Congress that has done this.
That is interesting.
What is going on here? So I want to mention, by the way, a friend of mine, I've never met her, but she sends me emails every few days, and she goes to my blog. That's how we know each other. Is a union labor activist in New Mexico.
Okay.
And she wrote me an email about this and said, "Wait a minute, what does DOE have to do with tribal lands?
Uh-huh.
The tribes are allowed to do whatever they want." And I said,
got to have the money to do it.
They got, yeah. And I said, this is not about the U.S. DOE allowing or not allowing tribes to do this. This is about the U.S. DOE funding things that they're doing that have to do with energy. So I wanted to make that clear. Okay, we have one last one. Do you have more on that one, or should we just go on?
No, I've got more, but it's not that critical.
This next one is, I think, hysterical. This is from The Guardian.
South Australia on track to meet 75% renewables target that the Liberals had promised to scrap.
Now, you got to bear in mind, when you're talking about Australian politics, the word liberal means conservative Republican.
I'll explain that, because the Labour Party is center-left, and it has pursued a liberal economic program.
Yes.
Okay, it broadly represents the urban working and middle classes.
Yeah.
So it's sort of analogous to the Democrats.
Yes.
Sort of.
And
the Liberal Party is a party of the center-right, which
Yes.
represents businesses, the urban middle classes, and many rural people. So it's sort of analogous to our Republican Party.
Yeah,
but it's
and-
Australia, it's a different country.
Yeah, and they are from an energy point of view in a big disagreement, and the reason is because the Liberal Party, the which is the conservative, and they're referred to as the conservative Liberal Party sometimes, wants to support coal, just like Donald Trump wants to support coal. And things have got a little bit out of control in Australia.
And South Australia.
Let me read
parts
this.
of Australia too, as we've talked.
It's crazy. South Australia's energy minister says the state is on track to have 75% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2025. Because of the low costs of renewables, it is meeting a target that the current government does not support. The Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull once described the Labour renewable energy policy as, quote, ideology and idiocy in equal measure, end quote.
So here again, Labour is the left-wing party, and Liberal is the right-wing party.
But the point is, the guys who were saying, we don't want to have 75% renewable
They're
energy.
in power now.
You can't do that. They're in power now. And they were saying, you can't do it. The grid won't support it. It'll cost too much. Everything is bad.
And it's happening.
And it's happening because it's cheaper. And not only is it cheaper, it works better.
Interesting.
Isn't it? South Australia is the place where Elon Musk put in that 100 megawatt battery.
Yep.
He said, I will put in this battery within 100 days of the day you sign it.
Or you get it free.
Or you get it free. And we're talking about a piece of equipment here that would cost scores of millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And he put the thing in. South Australia put $50 million into the battery. In the first 4 months of operation, they saved $35 million. The payoff on this thing is gigantic. It took over 55% of the market that is aimed at regulating. Oh, what is it called? It's the market where, when you have too much call for electricity, they slow down the cycle, so that instead of being 50 cycles per second, it's 48 or something like that in Australia. I think
That kind of happens automatically.
Well, yeah, but
If you put the load, if you take too much load, the cycles go down.
But when that happens, the price of electricity goes through the roof.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is this battery that Elon Musk put in took over 55% of that market. And it depressed the price, that super high priced electricity in that market, by 90%.
They had like peaking plants.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the government of South Australia, which was just elected in, which people were saying, oh, they're going to be opposed to this. They're going to resist this in the future. They got elected in, and they said, wait a minute,
It's working, guys.
It's working, guys. So Elon Musk had made another deal with the previous government that the new government, everybody feared, was going to nix, and that was a virtual power plant that involved 5 kilowatts of solar panels and one 13.5 kilowatt hour Tesla Powerwall in every one of 50,000 houses.
We talked about that last week.
We did. And that, the current government was saying, no, we can't do that. They get in, they have to face the reality of the dollars and cents, and they say, oh, we're right on the mark with that. We're right with you, Elon. So there you go.
Well, I mean, little by the way, it doesn't really mean anything at all, but the Liberal Energy Minister
Yes,
that's going through all of this, a guy named Dan Pelican,
yes,
okay? And my father's aunt visited Ireland many times. She belonged to some organization, and they sent her over there.
yeah,
And she came back with a coat of arms
Yes.
for the Fennell family.
yes.
3 pelicans. They do come from an area near the sea, so they knew what pelicans were.
You know, it's a funny thing. You think of pelicans in Florida, not pelicans in Ireland.
There's pelicans everywhere.
You know, when I lived in England,
Yeah, there was pelicans there.
there may have been, but I'll tell you what there was near where I lived.
Yeah.
Palm trees.
Yeah. Right.
On the
Right.
coast, then they were not a native species, but they had naturalized in England.
There's palm trees in Ireland too.
Scorpions.
Okay.
We had bamboo growing in the yard.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, time to say goodbye
Goodbye, folks.
and have a lovely day. Energy Week. Have a perfectly lovely week.